So in the previous year, we began to just um, speak general terms about Hashavas Haveda, about the mitzvah of Hashav Teshivim, and the Isser of Asucha Salim. Today, we're going to actually begin to get into actual Hashavas Haveda practical scenarios. And as we learn from the Haggadah that everything goes better in question answer format, so I'm going to present a few shilas, but really think of whatever Shabbos Aveda Shaila that you had recently. This is Maisim B'chol Yom, and insert it and hold on to it. And as we discuss the principles of a Shabbos Aveda, and what the details are in various scenarios that affect the halacha, think about how to apply them to your situation. So one Shaila is as follows. You want to make a barbecue, so you go to the supermarket, it's in a Jewish area, to buy meat for the barbecue. And as you're walking into the store, lo and behold, there's a shopping cart. It's clearly already been taken out of the store. It's been paid for. In the shopping cart, there's a bag. And in the bag, there's exactly the steak that you need for your barbecue, your dinner, whatever it is. And it's clearly abandoned. You wait there for 5 minutes, nobody's coming to get it. So Shiloh number one, can you take it? Is it hefker? Is it is there yush? How does this work? Or do you have to, is there a mitzvah here of a Shabbos Aveda? Or maybe you have to bring it back into the store. Another Shiloh. Your kids go to play soccer and basketball at the local park, also in a place where it's very hidden, and they find a brand new soccer ball, a brand new basketball. Again, same shaila. Can they take it? Another shaila. Walking on the street in a firm area, and you find a blanket, a kid's blanket, or in shul you find a raincoat or an umbrella. All these things, like I mentioned earlier, ma'asim b'chol yom. What do you do? And like we mentioned in the previous year, just doing nothing is not an option because if there's a chiyuv of a shov over here, there's an isser of leisuch alayhi salim. You can't just leave it behind. So we have to know what to do. So before we get into Sif Beis in the Alter Rebbe, we need to discuss outside some Yesodis. And number one is something that most people, many people, will remember from Cheder, from Yeshiva, and that is that there's a machlekes in Mesechus Bab Metziah, Daf Chaf Aleph, at the beginning of Parak Metziah, between Abaye and the Rava, Yerush Shaloi Midas. Yerush Shaloi Midas, Amar Rava, Have a Yerush. Abaye says, Loi Have a Yerush. And there's a long sugi over there, but ultimately the Gemara concludes the halacha is like Abaye, even though in all of Shas, Abaye and Rava, the halacha is like Rava. Nevertheless, B'yal Kagam, which is our shetivis for six machlekas in Yerush Shaloi Midas, it's Zemel Mafreya Alecha Yevin Be'elav, Kedushin Shalanim Sur Lebia. Gimel is Kildaita Begita, and Mem is Mumar Eichel Nevelis. In these six machlekas and in Shas, the halacha is like Abaye. The first one, Yud, is Yerush Shaloi Midas. Yerush Shaloi Midas, Loi have a Yerush. What's Yerush Shaloi Midas? Yerush Shaloi Midas is somebody loses something in a place where they're not going to get it back. They lose it in a public area, and when they come back for it, it's definitely not going to be there anymore. They're not going to bother coming back for it once they realize it's lost, but they have not yet realized it's lost. So once they realize it's lost, it's going to be Yush. They're going to be Miyash. They're going to despair of ever getting it back. Once there's Yush, and it's something that has no siman and no, otherwise there's no chiyuv of hashava, so you can keep it. Whoever finds it can keep it. However, as long as there was no Yush yet, it still belongs to them. It still belongs to the owners, and if you find it before Yush, you have to return it. Rava says, Yesh lemidas have Yesh. Doesn't make a difference to me if they didn't find it. If they were going to be miyash now, they're going to be miyash in an hour. They're going to be miyash. Then nobody's coming back to look for it. So I find it now, so I can hold on to it till they're miyash, and then I can keep it, or I can keep it right away. Either. Abai says Yesh lemidas lo yahav Yesh. When you find it, there's no Yesh yet. You have no right to keep it. There's a chiyuv of hashava. You have to seek out the owners and return it to them, and that's halacha Yesh lemidas lo yahav Yesh, and that's how it's passed on Shulchan Aruch and Simon Reish Samach Beis Siv Gimel. Okay, let's put that aside for the moment. Regarding Hashavas Aveda in general, we find in Gemara, Masechet Bava Mציאה, in Parakei Metziah, l'chera 3 categories. Number 1 is in the Mishnah, of Chaf Aleph Amud Aleph, the first Mishnah, something that is in a place that is completely open. Makom she'eino mishtamer, it's called. And it's being trampled by people walking around, it's rolling around in the street. It's lost. It's lost forever. One of the examples in the Mishnah that the Rosh highlights as an example of this category, Matza kriches b'rishus harabim. Somebody finds kriches, which are sheaves of grain. They're in the rishus harabim. They have no siman. You can keep them. This is lost forever. The owners are never getting it back. They're miyash from it. You find it, you can keep it. That's category number 1. Category number 2 is the exact opposite. Something that's you found it. It's somewhere, it's not in someone's house. It's you found it somewhere in public, but it's clearly not lost. It was clearly placed there on purpose by its owner, who's coming back for it. What's the example the Gemara brings? And so this is a brisa. Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. Talis b'tzad gader. You find that talis neatly folded next to the fence. Kardom b'tzad gader, or an axe, however you want to translate kardom, some type of chopping or picking tool. And it's placed neatly, clearly, it's consciously placed next to the fence. Or a cow that's grazing among the vines. Ein zu aveda. The Brisa tells us Ein zu aveda. This is not an aveda. This is not lost. First of all, not only you don't have to return it, you shouldn't return it. You shouldn't touch it, because if you take it, then you're giving the owners a big problem of how they're going to get it back. He left it here. He's coming back for it. There's no aveda. So those are the first 2 categories. Something that is not an aveda because you're allowed to keep it, meaning it is an aveda, but there's no chiyuv of hashava whatsoever. And something that's the exact opposite, it's not an aveda b'chlal, you're not allowed to take it. And then there's a machlok is different in what happens if you do take it, if you're allowed to put it back. Because if you take it, so the halacha is, if you take it and you're still standing there, you should put it back. But if you take it, the second category, that's something that's ein zu aveda, talis b'tzad gader. If you take it and you went home, you can't put it back. Because who knows what happened in the meantime? Could be the owner came back and he saw that it was lost and now he's looking for it. He's not going to go look there again. He already looked there and he saw that it was gone. So there, if you were over and took it, you shouldn't touch it. But if someone was over and took it, then they have to now do Hashavas Aveda. The third category is the in-between category, the Safik category. This is a Mishnah and Daf Chaf Hei Amud Beis. Matza achar hagapa or achar hagader goizolis mikusharim oy b'shvilin shebesadis. If one found behind a stone wall or a wooden fence, goizalis mikusharim. Goizalis are fledglings or young birds that are tied together, or or in the paths that run through the fields. What's the halacha? The Mishnah says, "Hareza lo yigabahen." Don't touch them. What does this mean? Lo yigabahen. Is it like the second category? Einzu aveda. So the Gemara explains. My time. What's the reason? The amrina nahani inishatznein. We say these aren't lost. Somebody put them here. And if you're going to take them, if you take them, the owners have no siman, so they're not going to be able to get it back. Hilchos lishbekinu ada asi maraya v'shakalu. So therefore, what's the halacha? Leave them. Leave them be. Leave them put. And the owners will come back and take them. In fact, the Gemara v'amai have a kasher simon. Why are you saying there's no siman? You said they're tied together. Gizalis mikosharim. So the kasher should be a siman. The way they're tied together is a siman. Amr Abba Barzab. Sorry, I skipped the line. No, I didn't skip the line. Amr Abba Barzavda Amr Ab Mikosharim Bekanfen. The Kula Alma Hachi Miktari Lahu. They're tied together by their wings. Everybody ties goizalis together like that. It's not a siman. A siman has to be something that's personalized. Right? Also, just a general yesod in Shabbos Aveda, a siman has to be something that's personalized. I lost a pen. Is it a blue pen or a green pen? It's not personalized. There are millions of blue pens and millions of green pens, but it has to be something that has a name on it, or it has a certain specific weight or size or certain identifying characteristic that is personal to this object and to this owner. Okay, so goizalis mikusharim that are tied together in the same way that everybody ties them together. It's not. There is no siman. In fact, the Gemara will have a makim siman. So the place where they were found should be the siman. That could also be a siman. I left goizalis mikusharim and this place. Whoever found them, or I should return them to the owner who is able to give the siman of where they were found. Amar avukva barchama b'medadin. They're not exactly in one place. They're medadin. They're hopping around. If they're medadin, then they came from somewhere else and returned. They're lost. This is a real aveda. There's no siman. Says the Gemara, you're right. You could say they came from somewhere else. They hopped here from somewhere else. And you could say that somebody put them here. This is a suffix if they were placed here intentionally by the owners or not. Anything that is suffix, it was placed here intentionally or not, you should not take it, you should not touch it. And if you take it, you should not put it back. And we'll discuss in a moment exactly what Nata Lo Yachzer means. But before that, what comes out from this sugya b'hashkafa rishayna? Just a simple balabata reading. Or this is not a simple balabata reading because this is the way the Rosh learned the sugya. The Rosh and the Torah and actually most rishayna. Something that has no siman, and it is suffix hinayach. It's a suffix if it was placed there intentionally. Then the halacha is lechatchila lo yitel ve'imnata lo yachzer. Why do we know something that davar she'ein v'simin? Because the Gemara asks the kasha should be a siman, the place should be a siman, so it must be. And the Gemara says no, it's not a siman. It must be if there was a siman. There's no suffix hinayach. There's for sure chiyav avashava. You have to return it. There's no lo yiga bahen. So must be that we're talking about davar she'ein v'simin. Something that has no siman, and b'safik kinayach, then the halacha is la'yitol v'imnata la'yachzer. But something that has a siman, there's a chiv of ashava. You have to be machers, whatever the details are, as we'll discuss b'hamshich. And this is how the Rosh paskins. What does it mean v'imnata la'yachzer? According to the Rosh, we're talking about davar she'ein v'siman b'safik kinayach. The halacha is la'yitol, don't touch it. V'imnata la'yachzer. Says the Rosh, just like in the second category, it's the same din. Don't put it back. If you're still standing there, you can put it back. This is also machlekes taisus argue, but it's dalach. If you're standing there, you can put it back. But if you took it and walked away and you went to your house, you don't know what's going on in the meantime. Maybe the owners came back, and maybe it was Taka was they were left there intentionally. The owners came back. They saw they were gone, and now you're going to put them back. They're not going to come looking for it anymore. So now you really have a chiyuv of hashava. However, this is all the rush. The Rambam in Hilchos Gzela Perik Tasav Halacha Aleph says as follows. Read the lashon of the Rambam. Kol Metziah Aveda. Anyone who finds an Aveda, bein sheyash basimin, bein she'ein basimin, whether it has a siman, whether it doesn't have a siman. Im matza derech hanacha, if you found it derech hanacha, in a way that it's clear that it was intentionally placed there, asr ligaba, it's asr to touch it. Shema be'aleo hinichu asham, ad sheyachsur la, v'im yavel litlana, v'hay adavar she'ein basimin, hari avad mamin chaveri, biyade. Shehari ein loy basimin lahachsir bay. If you find something that was intentionally placed, you shouldn't touch it. Because if you take it, the owners are going to come back looking for it, and it's not going to be there. And they're never going to be able to get it back. Because there's no siman. And if it was something that does have a siman, remember the Rambam started off, then told you can't take it. Why? Because it has no siman. Well, if it has no siman, for sure you shouldn't take it, because then they're never going to be able to get it back. Even if it's something that has a siman, so Mara, they're going to come back there looking for it, and then they're not going to find it. They're going to go to Sholem, they're going to hear the hachrazas, and they're going to know that it was found, and they're going to come get it for their, get their object back with their siman. So it's also not good. It's a pain. You're making them run around looking for their belongings to get it back with a siman. Why is none of this is necessary? So don't touch it. What's this? This is all the second category that we learned before. Talis b'tzat gader, kardim b'tzat gader. Something that's derech hanacha, don't touch it. And the Rambam continues, ulefichach aser loisha yigaba ad sheyimtzana derech nefila. You're not allowed to touch it unless you find a derech nefila. You find it in a way that it was dropped, it's lost. Then you could take it. And that's the first category. Krichas b'rishas harab. Continues the Rambam. So far, everything, the Rambam and the Rosh and the Gemara, everything fits perfectly. Now comes the difficult part in the Rambam. Says the Rambam, "Vafilu nistapik le'adavar." If it's a suffix, whether it was derech nefila or derech hanacha, this is the third category. This is the Mishnah Daf Chaf Hey. V'lo yada im davar ze avad aymunach, harei lo yigabe, and he doesn't know if it's lost or it was placed there on purpose. Safik hinayach, harei lo yigabe. You shouldn't touch it. V'im avar unatalei, asr lo lahachzir l'sham. And if you did take it, you can't put it back. Im natal lo yachzir. V'im haya davar she'ein by simin, and if it's something that has no simin, zachabay, you can keep it. Ein chayev lahachzira, and you don't have to return it. There are two big kashas that jump out. There's one that jumps out more, and you probably noticed it already. But the first kasha in the Rambam is that it's mashma from the Rambam. It's kamat mefurish. It's not just mashma. That the Rambam is talking about davar sheyash beisimin and davar she'ein beisimin. Either way, if it's safek hinayach, even if it's a davar sheyash beisimin, the same halacha. Lo yigabay, lo yitil, v'imnata lo yachzir. Or the Gemara says beferish, have a kesher simin, have a makim simin. It's mashma that if there's a simin, you have to take it and return it. What's la yitel? So why does the Rambam say that? And the truth is that the Achronim present many different mahalchim to explain the Rambam in this kasha, and even more so than in the second kasha. With this one, there aren't too many satisfying answers. The most popular answer is simply just to say the Rambam had a different gersh in the Gemara, the Seif, and he writes the same thing in the Kesef Mishnah, and the Rambam doesn't like this at all. He says it's a daichak to be mechadish in your girsa, which of course it is, and he Okay, so he has a different mahalach in explaining the Rambam. We're not going to get into that. It's less negay. It's less negay for our discussion at the moment. The second problem there, the second kasha that comes flying out of the Rambam says, "Im haya davar she'ein by siman." You find something that's suffik yinayach and ein by siman, only if it's something that ein by siman, zacha by. You can keep it. In other words, where does the Rambam get this from? It's clear the Rambam gets it from the Gemara. Lo yitel v'im natal lo yachser. Don't return it. Keep it for yourself. Why is this such a big problem? Because this is called Giyur Shalei Midas. What does it mean if you can take it and keep it for yourself? Because it has no siman and it's a safek yinayach. Was a machlekes Abaye Rava, Giyur Shalei Midas. Allah is Giyur Shalei Midas lo yahav yeyush. So how can you say keep it for yourself? So like I mentioned before, the Achronim struggle mightily with the Rambam. There are already starting with the Magid Mishnah, and the Kesef Mishnah, and the Shach, and the Smeh, and the Nisivis, and the Taz. Everyone has a different approach in explaining the Rambam. I saw in a Sefer, a contemporary Sefer, where he talks about this. He collects 8 different Mahalchim and Achronim, even from other Achronim, how to explain the Rambam. We're not going to go through all 8. Actually, now we're going to go over to the Alter Rebbe Seif Beis and read the Alter Rebbe. In Seif Aleph, just to recap briefly, we learned about there's a chiyuv of hashava, and what the halacha is if somebody picks up an aveda before yesh with the intention to steal it, and then if you pick it up with the intention to steal it, and then afterwards there was yesh, if there's still a mitzvah of hashava, and if you could still undo the gzela by returning it at that point, that was all Seif Aleph. Come Seif Beis, says the Alter Rebbe calls that b'diavad. This whole thing of picking it up with the intention to steal it is b'diavad. Aval lechatchila ledivri hakel asir min atayra leiskaven liskis bala atzma kaidem shenesiyahu shabaylam. Ledivri hakel, everyone agrees that it's asir min atayra to pick something up with the intention to keep it for yourself before use, before the owners, the spirit of getting it back. Afilu im hudavar she'ein by simin, even if it's something that has no simin, shebevade misyashem imenu habaylam kishanayda lahem, that even though the owners, they don't yet know that they lost it, but when they find out that they lost it, they're for sure going to be miyash because it has no simin, they have no way of getting it back. Rak achshav adayin lo ynoida lahem klal shenafal mehen. Right now, they still don't know that it fell from them. How do we know if they know they didn't know? If it's something small that they could have fallen without them noticing, so then it's called Giyur Shalei Midas. You don't know if they were miyayish yet. If it's something big and heavy that there's no way that they dropped it without noticing, that's not Giyur Shalei Midas. They for sure noticed, and they were for sure miyayish. And, as we'll discuss in more detail, behemshich. But Kollel Giyur Shalei Midas. עכשיו עדיין לא ינוי להם כלל שנפל בהם, הרי זה צריך להתלי על דאס להחזירי למי שיסבר שהוא בא אליו על פי עדן. You have to take it with the intention of returning it to the owners. How are you going to find the owners? There's no siman. When they bring Eidim. Derech Agav comes out over here from the Alter Rebbe that even something that has no siman, there's still a mitzvah to pick it up and try to return it al pi Eidim. The loy Rabbi Kiva Eger in Mציאה, in Chidushim on Mציאה, Daf Chaf Aleph Amud Beis, who says that something that has no siman, if you take it, you have to return it al pi Eidim, but you have no chiyuv to take it. Okay, Alter Rebbe says clearly here is a tzarich litli. The af im netali stam kol shalei niskaven lagazlei leiskis vela atzmei, and even if you take it stam azay, not having in mind to steal it, but you didn't have in mind explicitly to return it, it becomes like a pekadon, like a deposit in your possession, according to everyone. And and it's still considered belongs to the owners. And it no longer leaves their reshus later when they are miyayish, because now it's already in the possession of a shomer aveda. By you, it's a pekadon, and you have the chiyuv to return it was already chal. Then you have to return it to the owners al pi edim who saw that this and this person dropped it. Okay. Aval kolzman shaloi nisbar v'loi noida shel mi hizuha aveda. Kolzman that you don't figure out who lost it, who this belongs to. Harei he shall moitza. It belongs to the person who found it. You're allowed to use it. You're allowed to sell it. Until you're going to figure out who it is, and then you could return it or its value if you sold it to the owners. This is the shitta of the Rambam. But these words it did not say in the Rambam. What's going on here? This is the Shach, how the Shach explains the Rambam. The Rambam says, you find an Aveda that has no siman, derech that safek hinoich hariza shaloi. All the Achronim say, what do you mean hariza shaloi? Yesh shaloi midas. Yesh shaloi midas lehaviyesh. Says the Shach, yes. Yesh shaloi midas lehaviyesh. When the owner will show up with Eidim, you're going to have to return it to him. But in the meantime, you could use it. And that's how the Alter Rebbe writes. The Alter Rebbe writes the Shach's Mahalach in explaining the Rambam. Kolzman shaloi nisbar v'loi noida shal mi hizu aveda harehi shal moitza. Kolzman that you haven't yet figured out who this belongs to, then you're allowed to use it. And then you're allowed to use it until the owners show up and they bring Edom, then you have to return it to them. Either miyash yesh shalei midas, yesh shalei midas lo havi yesh. Okay. This is all the Rambam. V'yesh imrim she'aser leili hishtamash bava leila macher. Others say, the Rosh, the Tur, and the Ravid argues with the Rambam over there, and many other Shainim, the Maked Mishnah, that it's usher to touch it. It's usher to, not to touch it. It's usher to use it or to sell it. It's still in the Bailam's Rishus. It's still in the owner's Rishus. What's the halacha then? Has no simanim, has no eidin. You have to hold on to it forever. Unless he shows up with edim, but it calls man he doesn't show up with edim. Without edim, you can't give it to anyone. Somebody shows up and says it's mine. Okay, but you need Edom or Simonim, and there is no Simon, so you need Edom. Because you're going to give it to someone, then the real owner is going to show up tomorrow with Edom. Okay, so we have this machlekes. How do we paskin? So the mechaber in Shulchan Aruch, Siman Shin Samach, Tes, and Sefyud, paskins like the Rambam. However, the Ramah and everyone else paskins like the Rosh and Rav Rishonim, that something that is, even though it has no siman, and it's safek hinoyach, you shouldn't take it. If you took it, the halacha is yehi munach et sheyavei eliyahu. You cannot use it, you cannot touch it. V'devrei ikir lahachmir b'shel teira. This is also how the Alter Rebbe paskins. V'gam hei maharabim, you have a machlekes. B'chlal, you have a machlekes in a deiraisa. Klal is b'deraisa halecha charabachmer. V'gam hema harabim. We have a rule yachid v'rabim halacha karabim, especially when you have both together. This is how we paskin lechumra. So we'll stop here for now, and Be'ezus Hashem in the next shir we will continue this discussion and bring some clarity to some of the shilas that we began with.